There comes a point in your life where silence isn't just golden. It's survival. It's healing. It's the invisible armor you wear when you've been cracked open too many times trying to make someone understand you from a place you've already evolved beyond. It's not about repressing what you feel, not about bottling it up and pretending it doesn't matter. It's about conserving your sacred energy. You start to notice that not every situation deserves your fire. Not every argument warrants your voice. Some battles look like they need to be fought, but all they really need is your absence. You've grown, and growth brings the gift of discernment, the inner knowing of when to speak and when to remain silent. And let's be honest, sometimes silence is your greatest form of self-care. Not because you're weak or afraid, but because you're finally wise enough to stop trying to convince people of your worth, your vision, your transformation. You've learned that validation isn't required when truth lives inside you. You're no longer interested in trying to be understood by people still operating from the version of the world you've already left behind. Instead, you protect your process like it's sacred, because it is. You realize the moment you overexpose your inner change, it can start to wither. You've seen it happen. An idea that felt pure and alive suddenly loses momentum once you start talking about it too early. You thought sharing would strengthen it, but it didn't. It made it vulnerable. Because not everyone knows how to hold your evolution. Not everyone deserves to witness it. Some people don't even try to understand. They just wait for their turn to reply, to project, to dismiss. And the more you seek validation from those people, the more you distance yourself from your path. So now, you stay quiet. You hold your excitement close to your chest. When something sparks a fire in your soul, your first instinct isn't to broadcast it, it's to protect it. You ask yourself, am I sharing this because it's ready, or because I'm looking for someone else to make it feel real? And more often than not, you realize it's the latter. So you take a breath, you smile, and you keep moving. You don't shrink to be understood. You don't dim your light to be accepted. Because not everyone is supposed to see what's inside you. It's not for them, it's for you. And in that silence, in that space of quiet strength, you find something most people never touch: freedom. The freedom to move forward without needing applause. The freedom to evolve without seeking approval. The freedom to build in peace, uninterrupted. Some things need to mature like seeds under the soil, hidden, quiet, untouched. Dig them up too soon just to show them off, and you kill their chance to blossom. So you stay still, you stay rooted, you give them time. Because this transformation, it's not a show, it's a sacred unfolding. And not everyone needs to be in the audience. You used to think explaining would bring you closer to others. Now you know it often distances you from yourself. Every explanation is a withdrawal from your own bank of power. Every overshared dream is an offering to the noise when it should have been a prayer whispered in solitude. You've grown past the need to constantly clarify your direction. You no longer crave being understood. You crave being real, being whole, being at peace. And peace, my friend, rarely makes a sound. You know what's tricky? That moment when saying something makes you feel like you've already done it. It's deceptive. You talk to someone about your next big step, your next big dream, and the words spill out so beautifully that you feel like you've already climbed the mountain. You get that hit of excitement, that buzz, that temporary sense of completion. But here's the hard truth. Your mind can't always tell the difference between talking and doing. It rewards you the same way. Studies have proven it. When you talk about your goals, your brain releases the same chemicals as if you'd actually achieved them. Dopamine, satisfaction, relief, the illusion of progress. But it's just that, an illusion. You haven't built anything yet, you just spoke about it. And now, because you already felt the reward, your fire dims, your urgency fades. You think you've taken a step, but all you did was rehearse the future in your head and broadcast it to others. That's the danger. Because while you're getting congratulated for the dream, someone else is quietly building theirs in silence, and they're gaining ground. While you're talking, they're moving. While you're being applauded, they're making mistakes and getting better. And when you both arrive at the same finish line, you'll see the difference. One got there through motion, the other got lost in the sound. The Stoics had no time for this kind of empty noise. They weren't philosophers of promises. They were warriors of discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't go around telling Rome what kind of emperor he planned to be. He ruled with action, not announcement. His writings were never meant for applause. They were private notes to himself, filled with questions, with mistakes, with reminders of who he was trying to become. Not declarations, commitments. And you? You don't need another person's validation to begin. You need your own permission to stop waiting. Talking too much is seductive. It's an escape hatch, a way to feel safe without stepping into the arena. But the truth is, no matter how many people cheer for you, it's the quiet commitment that changes you. It's what you do when the room is empty, when no one's watching, when you're sore, tired, tempted to quit, but you don't. You stay, you keep building. That's the kind of momentum that can't be faked, because silent action doesn't rely on praise. It doesn't need explanation. It just becomes. And here's what they won't tell you. Talking drains energy you could have used to move forward. Explaining your path to everyone around. Invites noise, opinions, distractions. Every time you speak too soon, you allow someone else's doubt to creep in through the cracks of your forming vision. So instead of watering your garden, you're spending your time defending it. And that's how dreams die. Not from lack of belief, but from overexposure. From too many hands in the soil before the seed has even broken ground. What should you do instead? Keep your plans close. Build them quietly. Let them gain weight, gain shape, gain strength. And when they're ready, they'll reveal themselves. You won't have to say a thing, because the result will speak for you. The path will be undeniable. And the best part? You'll be proud not just of what you created, but of how you protected it. So the next time your mouth starts to move, ask yourself, am I talking to inspire action, or am I talking to feel safe? Am I planning or procrastinating? The answer matters, because if you want a life that grows from truth, not performance, from consistency, not commentary, then do this. Don't just say it, become it. Let the world find out after it's already done. Not because you shouted, but because you walked. Quietly, purposefully, unshaken. There's something profoundly powerful about listening, truly listening, not just with your ears, but with your entire presence. We live in a world where everyone wants to speak, to be heard, to say their piece, but very few want to pause long enough to truly hear. And yet, some of the deepest wisdom, the strongest clarity, the most transformative insight doesn't come from speaking. It comes from silence, from receiving, from holding space without rushing to fill it. Epictetus said we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, not just to sound poetic, but because nature already knew. We were built to listen more than we speak. And if you've ever sat across from someone who listens with their whole being, who isn't waiting for their turn to speak, who isn't measuring your words just to top them, you know what a rare gift that is. It's grounding, it's healing, and it teaches you something, that real power isn't in loud voices. It's in presence, in quiet attention, in absorbing more than you express. Think about the last conversation you had where you felt truly understood. Not tolerated, not nodded at, but genuinely heard. Now contrast that with the conversations that left you drained, where someone hijacked your vulnerability to talk about themselves, where your truth was reduced to background noise for their spotlight. It happens more than we realize, and every time we lose something. A piece of connection, a moment of truth, an opportunity to build instead of break. So ask yourself, do you listen like that too? Do you pause? Or are you just preparing your next line while the other person speaks? Because here's the truth. The one who listens, not to reply, but to understand, becomes the wisest person in the room, every time. Listening isn't weakness, it's emotional intelligence. It's choosing not to rush, and in doing so, seeing what others miss. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus learned it the hard way. As a slave before he became a philosopher, he spent years listening in silence, not out of choice, but out of necessity. And yet he turned that silence into strength, into observation, into insight. And when he finally spoke, it came from depth, not ego. That's what silence does. It prepares you. It sharpens your inner world so that when you speak, your words carry weight. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to argue. You speak from knowing, not from noise. Marcus Aurelius could have commanded attention with every word. He was emperor after all. But his journals reveal something else. Questions, doubts, reflections. He wasn't preaching to others. He was listening to himself, writing down what he learned by watching, by failing, by noticing the silence between the chaos. And that's what we forget. In a world addicted to commentary, it's easy to think silence is empty. But silence is where you hear your own voice again, where you recognize what matters, where your intuition finally has room to speak. So next time you're in a conversation, try something radical. Don't interrupt. Don't one-up. Don't shift the spotlight. Just listen. Let the silence stretch a little longer. Let the moment breathe. You might hear more than you expected. And more importantly, the person across from you might feel something rare. Safe, heard, respected. And yes, sometimes silence isn't just for others. It's for you. It's a filter, a boundary, a way to keep your peace. Because not every comment deserves your reaction. Not every critic deserves your explanation. Not every room is meant for your voice. Silence can be a strategy. It can be strength wrapped in stillness. So let the loud ones make noise. Let them fill the air. You stay grounded. You stay inward. You choose when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. Because the ones who speak the least often have the most to say when it matters. And the ones who know how to listen, truly listen, walk through life seeing things others miss. Remember this, wisdom isn't loud, growth isn't flashy, and the most powerful people you'll ever meet, they're the ones who speak less, observe more, and carry the kind of silence that makes you lean in just to hear what's behind it. So the next time the world tells you to say more, to shout louder, to explain yourself, don't. Just listen. And in that listening, become the voice that doesn't need to yell to be felt. You know what's quietly ruining more dreams than failure ever could? The addiction to applause. That constant hunger for external validation that creeps in and makes you believe progress isn't real unless someone else notices it. We've built a culture where visibility is mistaken for value, where the number of likes is supposed to measure the depth of your transformation. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If your growth depends on being seen, it's not growth, it's performance. If every step you take is done with one eye on the audience, then who are you really walking for? Yourself, or for the applause that fades the moment the crowd looks away? There was a time, maybe in your own life, when you were on the verge of something big. You'd planned, prepared, envisioned every detail. The spark was real. But then you told people about it, maybe to feel supported, maybe to feel excited, and they clapped. They cheered. And for a second, that felt good, but deep down it softened the fire. You got the reward without taking the risk. You got the celebration before the action. And then, nothing happened. You stopped. You slowed down. Not because you didn't care, but because your brain thought you'd already done something. And that's the trick. Applause feels like progress, but it isn't. It's a distraction wearing a crown. We've all done it, shared our goals before we started, talked about our plans as if that alone was a step forward. But it isn't. Derek Sivers explained it perfectly. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to actually do it. Why? Because your brain already got the prize, the social reward. So what's left to fight for? That's how the most powerful intentions get diluted. Not by failure, but by fanfare. The Stoics didn't live for cheers. They lived for clarity, for inner alignment. They measured success not by how loud the world got, but by how quiet their conscience felt. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he still sat down at night to ask himself, where did I fall short today? What can I do better? No one applauded those moments, but that's where greatness was forged. So what do? You choose silence. Not because you're hiding, not because you're scared, but because you're serious. You stop announcing your every move like it's breaking news. You let your work speak. You let your consistency build its own reputation. You celebrate in private. You keep your promises to yourself, even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. And that becomes your strength. Because when you don't need applause, you don't fear its absence. You become immune to the noise, to the pressure, to the lure of being seen. You just move. You build, you rise, quietly, steadily, unshakably. And yes, it's hard. Not sharing can feel like a missed opportunity, like the world might forget you exist if you're not constantly reminding it. But that's just the ego talking. Your purpose doesn't disappear when you stop talking about it. It strengthens, like roots growing deep beneath the soil, unseen but unstoppable. That's what real transformation looks like. It's not on display, it's not performative, it's personal, it's powerful, and most of all, it's quiet. So here's your reminder. You don't owe the world an explanation for every step. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need a stage to be real. Your growth is yours. Your healing is yours. Your next level is yours. Let it be sacred. Let it be silent. And when you do decide to share, let it come not from a place of needing to be seen, but from a place of already being whole. Because when you stop chasing applause and start honoring your own rhythm, you don't just grow, you glow. Without noise, without performance, just presence, just truth. There's a sacred kind of strength that forms in the quiet, in the moments when no one's clapping, no one's watching, and yet you're still moving. Not because someone told you to, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because deep inside you know this is your path, this is your work, this is your becoming. Trust is the same way. It's not something you give away freely. It's not something you broadcast. It's not a performance. It's a seed, and the soil it goes into matters. Some people are not meant to carry your truths. Some are not meant to see your scars. And some are not capable of holding the weight of your becoming. It's not about closing yourself off. It's about discerning who gets to enter the sacred space of your soul. Because not everyone deserves the keys. You've seen it before. You open up to someone, genuinely, vulnerably, and instead of care, they respond with comparison. Instead of holding space, they take up space. They turn your story into their stage, and it leaves you feeling smaller, not seen. So ask yourself, was that trust or was it a cry for connection? Were you sharing or were you seeking relief in the wrong place? The Stoics knew the answer. They understood that emotional wisdom isn't about building walls, it's about building gates. Epictetus didn't teach silence because he feared the world. He taught it because he knew power lies in restraint. He taught observation before confession, not as a shield, but as a filter. Because once you give away your inner world to someone who can't hold it, you don't just lose peace, you lose a piece of yourself. Seneca wrote that it's safer to withhold trust than to regret it, not as a commandment, but as protection. Protection of your inner landscape, of your healing, your direction, your depth. Think of bamboo. For 5 years, it grows no taller than a sprout. Underground, unseen, it builds roots so strong that when it finally shoots up, it grows more than 90 feet in just weeks. That's how trust should work. Quiet, deep, deliberate. Not handed to the first person who seems kind, not given out of loneliness, not traded for temporary closeness. And if someone doesn't respect your silence, they won't respect your story. You owe no one your inner world just because they smiled at the door. So what do? You begin by observing. Watch how someone speaks about others. That's how they'll speak about you. Listen to how they handle small truths before you give them your big ones. If they rush to speak, to judge, to broadcast, it's a sign. But if they pause, hold space, reflect, that's where something trustworthy can grow. And if you feel the need to share, just to get a weight off your chest, write it, breathe it out, sit with it. Because not every feeling needs to become a confession. Sometimes silence is self-respect. Sometimes privacy is peace. Sometimes what you don't say saves you. And there's more. There are some changes in your life that need to happen without narration. Some breakthroughs that need no explanation. Because the moment you speak them out loud, you make them vulnerable to distortion. Others will project their fears, their doubts, their limitations onto your journey. And if your foundation isn't solid yet, their opinions can shake you. Ever felt clear about a decision until you told someone, and then suddenly it didn't feel as right? That's the cost of exposing what's still taking root. Some things need to mature in silence. The eagle doesn't announce its flight, it just rises, without permission, without commentary. just air beneath its wings and certainty in its direction. That's how you must be when you're stepping into a new chapter. Let the work speak. Let the action form the words. Let the silence hold your clarity. Because not every battle is fought with noise, not every movement needs a microphone, and not every victory needs to be witnessed to be real. Some of the most important turning points in your life will happen in absolute quiet, with no spotlight, no celebration, just you choosing differently. So when the world gets loud, when people ask, "What are you up to these days?" or "Why aren't you posting about it?" smile, breathe, keep going. You don't owe them a headline. You owe yourself a life that's rooted, real, and yours. And trust me, when it's time, the ones who are meant to see will see. But until then, protect the process. Build in silence, bloom without warning, and let your life, your actual life, be the proof of your growth. Not the posts, not the plans, not the promises, just the living, just the quiet becoming. There comes a moment when the talking fades, when the need for applause softens, when the seeking stops. Not because you've given up, but because you've arrived at something deeper, a quiet certainty, a stillness that doesn't require performance. That's where real change happens, not in the noise, not in the announcement, in the pause, in the breath between steps, in the choice to keep going even when no one sees it. That's where you become unshakable. Because when you're no longer driven by validation, by approval, by the desperate hope that someone out there will understand you, you're finally free. The truth is, if you have to explain yourself to be accepted, you were never accepted to begin with. If you have to shrink to fit a space, then that space was never built for the full version of you. And if you're chasing understanding from those who've never done the inner work, you'll always feel unseen. So stop running, stop explaining, stop begging the world to get it. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to live your truth. And those meant to walk beside you, they will feel it without a word. Think of all the times you announced your plans, your dreams, your goals, only to feel empty, like the energy leaked out before you even began. That's because it did. Every time you speak something prematurely, you risk diluting its power. You invite opinions that aren't rooted in your truth. You allow the outside world to interfere with your inner unfolding. But when you protect it, when you hold it close, like a flame in the wind, something magical happens. It grows stronger. It becomes real. And when it finally rises, it's unbreakable because it was born in silence and shaped by intention. You don't need to defend your evolution. You just need to live it. Let your consistency speak. Let your integrity shine. Let your peace be the loudest thing in the room. And when people wonder why you've changed, you won't need to explain. Your energy will say it all. Because you chose alignment over attention, depth over display, truth over trend. And that choice, though often unseen, is what transforms everything. The monk walking down the mountain never had to preach. His presence did the talking. His steps said more than any lecture could. That's the kind of power you carry when you commit to yourself, not for applause, not for optics, but for growth, for real, lasting, soul-deep growth. And it's not always glamorous. It's often lonely, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, the only person who needs to believe in your journey is you. And if you can hold on to that, you'll never need to shout again. So here it is, the last truth, the one that ties it all together. If you do it for yourself, you don't need to say it. You'll know. You'll feel it in your spine, in your breath, in your silence. You'll wake up not needing to convince anyone because you've already convinced yourself. And that's more than enough. That's everything. From this moment on, let the noise fade. Let the world spin. Let others race to be seen. You walk in stillness. You move with purpose. You trust your roots. And when the time is right, you rise. Not because you need to be noticed, but because that's what truth does. It grows. It becomes. It lives without needing to say a word.